Snow and bad weather are unseasonable for Easter, but we have found a place where the flowers always bloom, here at the Horticultural Center in Fairmount Park in Philadelphia. Hi, I'm Monsignor Charles Minot.
And I'm Alice Vale. This week on Reel to Reel, we'll talk about being a missionary, and we'll find out that it's very interesting, very exciting, and very dangerous. But more than anything, it's very rewarding.
We'll also talk about how a very special child has helped to keep his family together. In our short segments, People and Places will deal with some special Easter traditions, and DABAR with an Easter message from Cardinal Krol.
The word missionary usually conjures up images of faraway lands and the name Marinol. Ray Tatro, a Marinol brother, has returned from Japan, bringing with him the missionary spirit into the Delaware Valley.
In 1960, a young man just out of the service left his family and friends to serve a people that needed him many miles from home, Japan.
I went with a lot of fears because I had no friends there, and the language really scared me to death. But as I went along, I got a little more confidence in myself, working in parishes and working with a lot of young people. They're the ones that really gave me the confidence. And still, I had a lot of very difficult times with the culture, adapting to the way of thinking of the people was very, very difficult. And it still is for most of us over there. You don't always become an expert in the culture. Hi, everybody.
Ray Tatro, a Marinol brother, spent 13 years in Japan. He's returned to the United States to accept another challenge to help create a mission spirit here. Operating out of Overbrook, one of Marinol's 15 National Regional Development Houses, Brother Ray, along with 2 other Marinol brothers and a priest, travels throughout the Delaware Valley, sharing his mission experience. Well, now that you're back here, what is the work of the Marinol House here in Philadelphia? How would you describe it?
We represent Marinol in 6 dioceses, and our main types of work would be in vocation work, mission education work, fundraising, and social justice work. And we try to support a lot of the diocesan works in these areas as much as possible. For example, we work with Father McGettigan in his school programs, Father Sharkey in the mission cooperative programs. He assigns us to grammar schools to talk about mission. 皆さんこんにちは。今日元気でしょうか。今日の天気はあんまり良くない。雨降ってるですからね。ちょっと寒いしね。My name is Brother Ray Tatro. I'm a Marinol brother. And what I said to you in Japanese was, good morning. I'm very happy to be here. I think our most important resource that we have is our mission experience and how we can minister to people with people who have nothing in life. But I think the faith that we have, the resources that we have, I think that we have to come back to the United States, to our roots, and share that with them and tell them that we do have responsibility for our brothers and sisters.
We are all probably most familiar with the work of Marinol from the very colorful and thought-provoking Marinol magazine and the Marinol books. Realizing a common need, in 1903, Father James Walsh of Boston and Father Thomas Price of North Carolina joined together to develop the first American society dedicated to the foreign missions. By 1911, St. Pius X approved and gave his blessing to the Catholic Foreign Mission Society of America, or better known as Marinol. Starting out from a simple farmhouse in upstate New York, Maryknoll trained young men for the missions in the Orient. Today, the early beginnings of the society are reflected in the Oriental architecture of the Maryknoll headquarters in Ossining, New York. In particular is this 13th century bell, which hung at one time in a Buddhist monastery in Japan and is rung only at departure when missionaries leave Maryknoll for overseas assignments. Brother Ray often goes back to Maryknoll, and invariably he'll run into an old acquaintance who is most likely in transit back to the missions. Meetings at Maryknoll resemble a United Nations conference. We left a discussion about Guatemala with one group and caught up with someone just in from Lebanon. All of our conversations usually centered on the challenging but often frustrating work of a modern missionary. Father Chapa, a member of the General Council of Maryknoll, described some of the many services that Maryknoll priests, brothers, sisters, and lay missionaries provide in 26 countries throughout the world.
Basic human needs that are not being met by the structures and the systems that are there, a missionary should or normally would get involved in that. Whether it's a feeding program or initiating a simple country school or some medical program. We have men who are involved in all that type of work.
Maryknoll has been under fire recently by conservative critics such as William F. Buckley for their direct involvement in social justice issues, especially in Latin America. Their critics feel that they are overstepping their religious responsibilities to get involved with political radicals, or in some cases, communists. Father Chapa counters these criticisms by citing Jesus' example in the Gospels.
Many examples in the Gospel of that, of people who neglected their brothers and went off to pray, and they were condemned by the Lord for that. You know, I think that for us it's quite obvious that if there are human needs, then we respond to human needs, and at the same time we hope that we can move people to relate to the Father and relate to Jesus and pray to them also. Not just pray and hope that the problem goes away. That's not Christianity either.
There was a bombing of the cathedral of the city where I'm from, Davao City, which led to 20 deaths and 200 people wounded. These are new developments where you can see the military dictatorship starting to really openly persecute the church. And that's why
because of their first-hand experience with human suffering and injustice, Brother Ray, along with his fellow Maryknollers, feel a deep responsibility to communicate their personal experiences and to support groups who are speaking out against social injustice. Meetings like this one, being given by a Filipino lay Catholic leader, are not uncommon at the Overbrook House.
Men are really involved with a lot of oppression, a lot of injustices that we don't know about that's here in America, that would be going out in all these countries all over the world. Because the news is not coming in, and people are really unaware of what's going on with their brothers and sisters all over the world. We are very unaware people here in America. And I think if you talk to a lot of young people today, it's very difficult for them to love the people in their families because of our tremendous and serious emotional problems that a lot of us face today, because of our materialistic nature, you know, that we're putting so much emphasis on. So I can relate to that from my experience in Japan to here. So I think this spiritual poverty is much more devastating than many types of oppression that we do see in third world countries. I think that this is the work of the church today to bring some sense of a deeper sense of love through a commitment to each other, to the people in our daily lives.
Brother Ray hopes to return to Japan someday, but for now, he's got his work cut out for him here in the Delaware Valley.
not easy because all of us are about 50 or more years of age, come from different continents. So we have committed ourselves to this house in the sense that if we don't get our act together in this house, we're not going to be able to have any effect on people. So that sets community strategy, very much so, especially in religious communities. Marinol has taken out very, very seriously, very difficult because of the nature of our work. We are trying to adapt to the needs of people, especially our own people.
Easter greetings. I am Cardinal Krol. In the history of mankind, only one tomb was opened and vacated by its occupant, the heavily guarded tomb of Jesus. At least 3 times he predicted his death and resurrection. At least 3 times he proved his power over death by restoring life to the daughter of Jairus, the son of the widow of Naim, and to Lazarus. After his resurrection, he was seen by the apostles and by hundreds of peoples. The resurrection of Jesus is a historical fact. It is also the central mystery and foundation of our Christian faith. It gives added proof for the divinity of Christ, for the immortality of the soul, and for the inner life of grace with Christ in time, and for the fullness of life with Christ in eternity. That is why Easter is a feast of joy, a feast of new life, and a feast of hope. Much of the sadness and tragedy and the evil in this world is attributable to the ignorance or rejection of the resurrection and all that it implies. Those who deny or ignore the existence of God believe that death is a final reality, a drop into nothingness. They do not hold themselves accountable to God's judgment. They violate the commandments of God and man. They live by the norm that the end justifies the means and that might makes right. All because they reject the immortality of the soul and the resurrection of our Lord. As Christians, we carry our crosses with confidence in Jesus crucified, with hope in the risen Christ. On this feast of Easter, I extend to all my prayerful best wishes. May the risen Christ strengthen your faith, increase your hope, and fill you with the joy and confidence that by dying Christ destroyed our death, and by rising he restored our life. A happy and a holy Easter to all.
Despite its present appearances, Easter has its roots in religion. In ancient days, outdoor feasts and offerings to the gods signaled the reawakening of the earth. In central Italy, Flora was honored as goddess of flowers and springtime. Scholars also believe that the Anglo-Saxon goddess of spring, Ostera, gave her name to the English word Easter. Early Christians countered these pagan rituals with the celebration of the resurrection of Jesus. And did you know that the Easter bunny comes from an ancient symbol? People used to calculate the feast days by the moon. The moon still determines the day Easter is celebrated, and since the hare was an Egyptian symbol of the moon, his image was always present at Easter, and he even maintained his presence when Easter became a Christian festival. Eggs, too, are ancient symbols, symbols of future life. They're popular Easter treats in every form, but the symbolism of the egg took on new meaning in the Middle Ages when St. Augustine linked it to the rising of Christ. Just as the chick is entombed in the egg, so too was Jesus entombed in the grave, later to rise to new life. By the 19th century, elaborately decorated eggs were exchanged by the nobility in Tsarist Russia. And even though the simple dyed eggs that we prepare for Easter morning are not as priceless as those exchanged by the Tsars, they hold their own enchantment, especially in the eyes of children. And these brightly colored eggs can still be symbols of the resurrection of Jesus, if we but recall the mystery.
For all Christians, Easter is a special time for celebrating joyously the rising of Christ from the dead. Harvin and Gloria Black have had a special rebirth of a sort in their own family. When they adopted Jonathan Derrick, he was diagnosed as having Canavan's disease, a deterioration of his nervous system, and given only 15 to 24 months to live. Today, he is 3 years old and improving.
Very, very few kids fit under any programs. March of Dimes didn't have any money. Tay-Sachs, which Jonathan fits under, has no money. He doesn't fit under Joey Lewis. He doesn't fit under cerebral palsy. He doesn't fit under Easter seals. Would somebody please tell me where my son fits?
They knew we had the baby. They knew it had something, some kind of a disease that was wrong with it. And they would ask us, well, why don't you just give it back? Why don't you just carry it to a home somewhere and forget about it?
Harvin and Gloria Black live in Bainbridge, Georgia, and are the parents of 8 children and the legal guardians of Jonathan Derrick Black, a very special member of their family.
I had a lot of weaknesses before Jonathan came into my life. I couldn't handle problems. I was a very weak person. And now I can see I don't need anything but me to depend on to get me through the day. Jonathan has showed me that, you know, I can take everything that's dished out without having to find help otherwise. I don't have to turn to pills or shots or drinks or anything like that to get me through a day because I got Jonathan. I know I've done the toughest thing in my life next to losing my husband.
When the Blacks took custody of Jonathan, they knew he was dying. Jonathan is a victim of Canavan's disease, which destroys the nervous system, causes seizures, and eventually chokes its victim to death. Jonathan cannot sit up and must be fed through a tube attached to his stomach.
Jonathan hospital bills ran way up into the thousands of dollars. During the same time, Gloria had to have an operation. At that time, I was self-employed, and I could not get any insurance, any hospitalization insurance on Gloria nor Jonathan, either one. And so I was having to foot the whole bill completely without any help at all. And we had tried to get help from different agencies around, you know, and had been unable to do so.
Because of the bills, Harvin had to file for bankruptcy. With time, their economic situation worsened. They lost their home and were forced to rent another one. Now again, due to Jonathan's hospital and medical bills, they have to leave their home.
Got to get it off?
Working on it, babe. Hi.
Hey,
Hey, Kathy.
much left in there?
A little bit. Got a little bit more to do, yeah.
We've had to give a lot to get a lot. And it's coordinate. You can't measure the cost of love and what. You can't say how much you got when you say you got love, because it's not for sale. And for one smile or one little crooked look at me, it's worth $1 million. I mean, I'd give up everything in this world just to have that little smile or that little look or that little giggle out, or even the cry in the night.
The other kids, they all was married except two. We have two here with us at home, two girls, and we have 5 grandkids. And this made a big difference in the lives with them. Some of them seems to think that maybe Jonathan has interfered in their lives to an extent, you know. And I guess this is just normal people for it to react on them like this, but they've always willing to pile in and help regardless of what the situation has been.
Even in the worst situations, the blacks have stuck together. Harvin and his family have been fortunate to be able to move in with Gloria's mother, Grace Hurley.
He's brought a lot of happiness. He's brought a lot of understanding. He means so much to us. We've been through a lot with him. We've seen him at the point of death. And we still stand over and pray so hard just to be spared with us. And the further it goes, the worse I'm wrapping my heart around him.
Grandma's not the only one reacting in this way to Jonathan. It seems that 2 of Jonathan's sisters, Kathy and Teresa, are also very close to him. Although doctors gave him only 15 to 24 months to live, it appears Jonathan is reacting positively to the warm treatment he receives from his family.
Speaking of Jonathan, I think that I just don't think there could be anything much more special than he is right now between either one of us. I really believe that the love we have for him is really what has kept the little fellow going. Truly, I really believe that had we not loved him like we did, that he would not be here today.
Brought more happiness to our life. We always say that before we got Jonathan, we had money, but now we have more love than we've ever had, and he's taught us love and what really love is, and he's brought my family closer together.
Well, whenever he looks at you and smiles and all, I think that's his way of communicating, trying to reach out and tell you, you know, that he loves you back too, as much love you give him.
The doctors told us that Jonathan would not live past 18 months to 24 months. That was it, no more. They tell me take Jonathan home, make him comfortable. He's gonna die. So we took him home, all disheartened, lay him down, wait for him to die. Jonathan keeps improving. He keeps getting better. Things keep getting better with him. So this year I call back and I make an appointment with an orthopedic doctor. I said, I'm going to go another way. But he says, I think I can get him up, and I think I can get him communicating the magic words.
Gloria consulted with orthopedic Dr. William Schmidt at Emory University Clinic in Atlanta.
I may not be able to cure the disease process by any manner of the means. Our job is to, if the individual is functional, if they're walking and they have an ambulatory potential, to keep them ambulatory as much as possible. If they have a limited ambulatory potential, that is, maybe they're not a community walker, but they're a household walker. They can get around the house and take care of themselves in certain part. That's our job, to do those things to help them. And there are some that are totally dependent on such devices as a wheelchair or other devices, and there are some, like Jonathan, who are totally dependent on their parents. And yet it's still our job to try and help them, help Jonathan, to at least function as best possible in his environment.
There used to be a time that I used to be scared to put him to bed. There used to be a time I wouldn't go check him in the mornings because I'm scared I'd find him dead. But not anymore. The fear's gone now. I don't have that fear anymore. Jonathan's with us. And we're all going to die. And we may be gone before he is. And we're not living with a dying child anymore. We're going to live with one that we got to do a lot of work and a lot of prayers, but we're going to make it.
Next week, we'll meet the couple behind As the Spirit Leads, John and Barbara Ann Marion, and go to Rochester, New York to meet a surgeon who answers to both doctor and sister. Our short segments will feature Father Joe Champlin and some spiritual insights on jogging, and a visit with Francis Caldwell, who is 85 years young and too busy to be old. It was St. Augustine who said, every Christian must become a walking Alleluia. It is our Easter prayer and wish for you that the risen Savior will provide you every blessing you need to help you rise up over anything that holds you down.
Happy Easter from all of us at Reel to Reel. Thanks for being with us, and we'll look forward to seeing you again next week.
Goodbye, and God bless you.